How are we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and today I'm going to be going over my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC Rio de Janeiro, Oliveira vs. Gamrot on October 11th, 2025. Timestamps in the comments below. Let's get right into it with the first fight of 13. We start with Luan Lacerda versus Saimon Oliveira. Man, open up with a great fight. I'm going to probably go with Luan Lacerda. Honestly, I don't really know why. Gonna be honest with you. Saimon Oliveira, in the UFC at least, has really shown me nothing to like him for. From what I remember, he got severely out-grappled by Tony Gravely, if memory serves me correctly. His most recent performance, he got absolutely dominated by David Martinez. And then in between that, his fight before that in 2023, he got murdered by Daniel Marcos. He just got wrestle-fucked by Tony Gravely. Yeah. He's got slick jiu-jitsu. He has 11 wins by submission, so there's always going to be that factor of, oh, maybe he can find a sub. I think on the feet, Saimon Oliveira is outside of a couple down the pipe attacks like a 1-2, a teep to the body. He genuinely offers fucking nothing. Luan Lacerda is somewhat the same, but I feel like he's going to have a significant size advantage over Saimon Oliveira, and I sort of rate that a little bit more in a scenario like this. They're both critically inactive. Luan a bit more than Saimon. Saimon at least fought this year, but they both, prior to that, had only fought in 2023. A couple of bums to open up the card. I think Luan Lacerda hits harder. I think he's a bit more clean on the feet. He doesn't do a lot of stupid shit like Saimon Oliveira does, so I'll pick Luan Lacerda. We move to Julia Polastri versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I'm going to pick Julia Polastri to beat Karolina Kowalkiewicz. It really hinders on Karolina's age. It's not very often that you see not super old, like in the grand scheme of things, Karolina's not all that old, but for a WMMA fighter, she is pretty fucking ancient. And she's only been fighting super young, talented ladies, Denise Gomes and Yasmin Lucinda back-to-back. She is taking a step down in Julia Polastri, but Julia, she's pretty nasty too. And if you're not super well endowed in the boxing or have a really solid double leg in your back pocket, you're going to struggle really heavily against her. Which, to be fair, Karolina can shoot some decent entries on takedowns if, like, somebody, like, is genuinely telegraphing a punch from across the cage. Which Julia Polastri, to be fair, she can somewhat charge up. But Julia's got really good cardio, and outside of the grappling deficit she's shown in her career, she got out-grappled pretty bad by Josephine Knudsen. She got out-grappled by Lupita Godinez and outboxed early in that fight. She was getting controlled pretty heavily by Corey McKenna against the cage. Other than that, she's pretty nasty on the feet. She throws a lot of knees in the clinch, a lot of elbows. She presses you against the fence. She seemingly hits pretty hard. She fights like she's way bigger than she is in this division, which I kind of like in a way, how she's so in your face about everything. And I think that'll work really well against a girl like Karolina Kowalkiewicz, who is super old and who I have seen take a dip in her skill over the last couple performances she's had. It's just because she's fighting super young, talented ladies. So I will pick Julia Polastri over Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Karolina's she's a grandma. You know what I mean? She fights like a grandma. She's the age of somebody who could maybe be a grandma if you're a fucking bop. But, I don't know. I think Julia Polastri's just got it in the bag. We move to Valter Walker versus Mohammed Usman. I'm going to pick Valter Walker pretty obviously over Mohammed Usman. Mohammed Usman has had quite the weird UFC career. He started out 3 wins in a row. He looked like maybe somewhat of a prospect. Not really. He always was kind of mediocre. Had a really wild KO in his debut over Zach Payonga to win the Ultimate Fighter, and then he racked off, I think it was Junior Tafa and then Jake Collier. The Jake Collier fight was pretty fucking close. Same with the Junior Tafa one. And then he fought Mick Parkin, which was also really close, to be fair. And then Thomas Petersen, which was not as close. He's coming off Hamdi Abdelwahab, which, is an all-right win. My big issue is ever since Zach Payonga, he has been able to do nothing to anybody, honestly. He very rarely gets moments where he stumbles people. I feel like the only fight where he hurt somebody might have been Mick Parkin, and that was in the very first round. I think maybe he had Hamdi Abdelwahab stumbled in moments, maybe. But he's been using he uses a lot of physical attributes to try and wear down on the opponents. Like a lot of clinch work, a lot of kind of dragging you into his cardio realm. I feel like Walter Walker's honestly just going to do what he does best and chase down a kind of more tubby heavyweight, get them against the fence. He's a big fucking guy. He's going to be bigger than Mohammed Usman, which is Mohammed is not used to, by the way. He's not used to a guy that's going to be as big as Walter Walker charging at him. And I feel like if Walter Walker's able to do it to Kennedy Nzechukwu, Dante Almeida, and who was the other guy that he did it to that I'm not remembering? Junior Tafa at 305. That's who it was. If he's able to do it against those guys, finish them all in the first round via heel hook, I feel like he should be able to get Mohammed Usman. I feel like Mohammed Usman is prime heel hook territory for Walter Walker. I feel like he's pretty low level, especially when it comes to defensive grappling positions like that. It's going to be something that the problem is with the heavyweight division, a lot of these dudes have never been put in a scenario like that in their MMA careers. You can practice it all you want. You've never actually been in one in an actual fight, and they all fucking freak out and panic tap. But to be fair, Walter Walker is really stealing fucking Achilles from these dudes. And he's got 3 different variations. So whichever one he wants to get Mohammed Usman with, he can do it. We've seen him do it off of the clinch. He lateral drops into one. So Walter Walker's pretty fucking good. We move to Lucas Rocha versus Stewart Nicoll. I'm gonna go with Stewart Nicoll over Lucas Rocha. I feel like I've just seen, in the 2 performances Lucas Rocha has had, one in the Contender Series, one in the UFC, I've seen him get out-grappled quite a bit. He's a very small guy for flyweight, which is kind of crazy to be that way. He's 5'3", and he's Brazilian. Don't get me wrong, he is Brazilian. He is a lot more of a striking Brazilian than a grappling Brazilian, if you get what I'm saying. A lot of his wins you'll see are from crazy finishes. For example, on the Contender Series, he got heavily out-grappled in the first round. I think it was like a dude named Bittencourt or something. He had an afro. Lucas got out-grappled at the very beginning of round 2. Davey Bittencourt. He was a little bit tired and then ran headfirst into a knee, and it was one of the weirdest bodily reactions during a knockout we've ever seen. Ended up getting signed from there. He got absolutely mauled a year later by Clayton Carpenter. He got absolutely fucking sauced up, who we will talk about later against Jafel Filho in the featured prelim. But Stewart Nicoll, outside of Jesus Aguilar, who is a very good defensive submission guru in the UFC, if you know, he's got really good jiu-jitsu. He just does. Like, defensively, he does. He throws a lot of guillotines in there to mix it up. He ended up getting Stewart Nicoll with a guillotine. Other than that, Stewart Nicoll has made a career off of getting takedowns, controlling people, and mauling them on the ground. He's really good when it comes to situational awareness on where people put their legs, and if he's not in a guillotine, at least, obviously, against Jesus Aguilar, he's really good at manipulating positions to his liking. And I think there is a difference in these two having the layoffs that they've had. Stewart Nicoll fought in August of last year, Lucas in October. To be fair, Stewart was supposed to fight in February. He pulled out with an injury, but other than that, I feel like Stewart's actually been working a lot on his game, if you will. He trains at a decent team. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure at least. I feel like Stewart Nicoll, I think I've heard that he trains at City. I'm not too sure. He's more of a grappler than he is a striker. He's got like kind of smaller arms than I'd like for him in this matchup because Lucas will have, even though it looks like he has a shorter reach, trust me, I think his arms are a bit longer, just by a little bit. Look for Lucas to throw a lot of spastic shit. He throws a lot of flying knees. He hits pretty hard, but other than he gets out grappled a lot. I'm not a huge fan of that. So I will pick Stewart Nicoll to get his takedowns and control Lucas Ocha. Actually, he'll probably find a finish because Lucas can get beat up. And that's exactly what Clayton Carpenter did. He beat the shit out of him on the ground and then found a sub, I'm pretty sure. So look for Stewart Nicoll to find takedowns. Maybe Lucas can catch him with a knee up the middle, maybe an uppercut or something like that. Maybe he finds a defensive submission of his own, but he only has, I think, 4 submission wins on his record. So I lean more towards Stewart Nicoll. Just personal. We move to Beatriz Mesquita versus Irina Alekseeva. I'll pick Bia. I kind of don't want to though. I kind of want to pick Irina Alekseeva, but I'll go with Bia. If Irina was a bit more consistent, I would definitely consider picking her. But her UFC tenure so far has been mediocre, to say the least. Beatriz Mesquita, if you don't know, is a world-renowned BJJ practitioner. She used to be in the IBJJF like championship. She used to be like the champion over there. She's been in ADCC before. She's been grappling for fucking ages, honestly. She's grappled really solid. WMMA grapplers. Was she ever on UFC Fight Pass? She was on Fight Pass. She's got submissions over Miesha Tate and Jennifer Maia. She's grappled with Fifin Davies, I think is how you pronounce her name, who's like the main staple in like the UFC, like Craig Jones shit. Like she's submitted Mackenzie Dern. Like Beatriz has grappled her many a times. Irina Alekseeva's main issue is her cardio and kind of grappling. I will be honest with you. I do think Beatriz Mesquita is a bit overrated, though. Her striking is genuinely terrible. I will admit that to you. Her striking is fucking god-awful. She looks like she doesn't know what she's doing on the feet when it gets prolonged. If she isn't shooting a takedown, she is doing the most unnecessary hooks at range. But Irina Alekseeva isn't that great either. So it's not like it's getting counteracted by anything crazy. Irina hits hard. That's about it. She's got some jiu-jitsu of her own. That's about it. Her 1 win in the UFC is a knee bar over Stephanie Egger. Besides that, if like Irina just performed a bit better against like Melissa and Claudia Segula, I would probably pick her here, but she teetered off so hard in those performances, and she got out grappled in both, that I feel like I can't pick her. So I'll go with Bia Mesquita over Irina Alekseeva, most likely by submission or control victory. 29-28, I feel like Irina's going to win the first round. Bia is going to look lost on the feet early on. Irina's going to slow down per usual. And then Bia is going to be able to find her takedowns a little bit easier. So I'll go with Beatriz Mesquita to win I'll go submission. Fuck it. We move to Vitor Petrino versus Thomas Petersen. I will pick Vitor Petrino over Thomas Petersen. Lighter man skill is going to be in full effect in this fight. It'll be like maybe interesting. I don't know. I feel like Vitor Petrino is just going to be able to bulldoze Thomas Petersen a little bit here. He's going to have a lot more weapons on the feet. Thomas is coming off a really good performance, to be fair to him, over Don'Tale Mayes on that Des Moines card. I believe that was the last time Thomas Petersen fought. I know he got knocked out by Shamil Gaziev earlier in the year. I believe that was on the Saudi Arabia card. My fucking... Hold up. My Chrome isn't responding. Hold up, give me a second. It's not... I'm pretty sure he fought Thomas. I'm pretty sure Thomas fought... Yeah, it was Don'Tale Mayes, Shamil Gaziev. Yeah. But Vitor Petrino just made very quick work of Austin Lane and out-grappled him, which is actually kind of crazy because grappling is actually what Austin Lane is probably one of the, more prepared heavyweights in the unranked side of things in that regard. Austin Lane's a pretty decent wrestler himself. Vitor Petrino took him down very easily and submitted him very easily. Thomas Petersen's just a fat guy who honestly could fight in a way lower weight class. Thomas Petersen looks like he could shed off fucking 60 pounds, honestly, of just sheer fat. No, that's too much. Maybe he's like 30, 40, you know what I mean, maybe. He's got a lot of tum on him. A lot of tum and, flabby chest. But Vitor Petrino, Thomas Petersen's whole thing is his wrestling, so I'll be intrigued to see who shoots first out of these two. It'll more than likely be Thomas shooting a dumbass takedown that Vitor either is able to defend or maybe he gets taken down by it but then reverse his position or something like that. I feel like Thomas Petersen either way is going to lose. On the feet, he's going to get way outmatched by Vitor. And in the grappling, Vitor is way more technical and just better. So I'll go Vitor Petrino over Thomas Petersen any day of the fucking week. Give Vitor Petrino into the rankings because he's actually, decent. Even though he lost to Anthony Smith, hardy har. Thomas Petersen isn't even as good as Anthony Smith. So that's besides the point. We move to the featured prelim. Jafel Filho versus Clayton Carpenter. This is a pretty close fight. I really like it, honestly. I'll go with Clayton Carpenter. Jafel Filho's last performance it didn't irk me, necessarily. I wasn't the biggest fan of his most recent endeavor against Alan Nascimento. I feel like he he allowed himself to get controlled so much in the latter half of that fight, and also he just dwindled so heavily on the feet, which again is something I was not a humongous fan of. Clayton Carpenter, they're both coming off of losses, to be fair. Jafel's a bit more recent. Clayton Carpenter fought in January, lost to Tagir Olembekov. But that's my thing, is I feel like Clayton he didn't win a round against Tagir. I don't know, it was kind of close. I thought he could have won a round. He couldn't win. Same with Jafel Filho. I think Jafel Filho clearly won the first round against Alan Nascimento. After that, he fell off a cliff. Clayton Carpenter was competitive throughout the fight. And I know Jafel Filho has that Mohammed Mokaev performance where he almost submitted Mohammed Mokaev on 3 separate occasions. Actually dismantled Mohammed Mokaev's knee in that fight, defensively grappling-wise. I feel like Clayton Carpenter is a bit more nasty on the feet. I feel like Jafel Filho has more range of motion in his attacks. He can go to the head, he can go to the body. I feel like Clayton's a better boxer, though. And I feel like he mixes in his takedowns just a little bit better than Jafel Filho does. And Jafel Filho is a kind of guy who will willingly go to his back, kind of try and fight for a submission off his back kind of thing. And Clayton's pretty nasty on the ground when it comes to ground and pound and overall submission ability of his own. I feel like Clayton had a really solid fight against Tagir Olembekov a little bit too early into his UFC career, I'll admit. He got that 3 months after the Lucas Rocha performance, which he dominated in. I feel like Clayton can mix this up a bit more than Jafel Filho. I feel like he's a better offensive wrestler in this scenario. On the feet, Jafel Filho, I think, mixes and kicks a little bit more. I think Clayton Carpenter's a bit better with the hands. I feel like he was catching Tagir Olembekov a little bit more than people will give him credit for. And I feel like as this fight goes on through the distance, I think Clayton Carpenter's a bit sharper as the fight will continue. It is obviously weird because it's in Rio, and Jafel Filho is obviously going to be representing Brazil, so maybe the scorecards will be a little bit wishy-washy. I think Clayton Carpenter can get a win here, get a split decision win here by doing just a bit more on the feet, maybe landing harder shots as this fight goes on. And overall, I think the grappling presence is going to also shock Jafel Filho a little bit. The takedown threat that's going to be present there. I like Clayton Carpenter in this fight. His 2 wins in the UFC, the absolute domination, that was his performance against Lucas Rocha, and then in his debut, he beat, was it Juan Camilo Ronderos, the guy that Tatsuro Taira beat on the Contender Series, I think? Or was that also in Tatsuro's debut? I'm thinking about a different guy. Juan Camilo. What happened to this dude? This guy, he fought David Dvorak. That's who. Who was I thinking of? But also Clayton beat Edgar Shirez on the Contender Series. I like that. He's fought 4 really solid, talent. I know Jafel Filho fought Mohammed. He fought the best opponent out of both of them. I feel like Clayton's pretty good, though. I think he's underrated. So I'll go with Clayton Carpenter. This isn't an opponent that's going to have a 5-inch height advantage because Tagir Ulanbekov is like 5'9", 5'10". He says he is. He's taller than that. Clayton, he's going to be fighting a guy who might be lying down about his height as well. I feel like Jafel Filho is like 5'8". So I'll go Clayton Carpenter over the very dangerous Jafel Filho. I think Clayton Carpenter can slow this fight down a little bit and make it more into his game. We move to the start of the main card. Lucas Almeida versus Nicoll Aswell. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to pick Lucas Almeida here as an underdog. I like him in this fight against Nicoll Aswell. It's definitely interesting. I'm not the biggest fan of either of these guys, totally. I think they're both pretty mediocre in the UFC featherweight standings. They kick my ass, right? But compared to other featherweights, I think they don't really bring a whole lot to the table. But I think there is a weird thing that can go on here where this is the second opponent that Lucas Almeida is going to fight that fought Polastri on short notice. And the last time he did that against Timmy Kwamba, he beat the ever-living shit out of Timmy Kwamba. Polastri has this weird thing where he has really competitive fights with everybody he fights it with in the UFC other than when he loses. Both of his wins in the UFC have been incredibly kind of competitive performances against Nicoll Aswell and Timmy Kwamba. I feel like Nicoll Aswell just isn't all that great. He obviously had a really wild Contender Series fight with Bogdan Grad, which was nuts, which he arguably could have won, to be fair. But Bogdan Grad isn't really all that great. And his other loss, he lost to Polastri, obviously. He lost to, I want to say, Yadir Del Valle on the regional scene, yep. Which is not a bad loss at all. Yadir Del Valle is fucking nuts. That fight with him and I think he's fighting, is it Isaac Ilgarian? That's going to be a badass fight. I don't really know what Nicoll Aswell brings to the table. He's pretty durable. He's got decent striking. I feel like he doesn't hit all that hard. And if he hit just a bit harder, because here's the thing, Lucas Almeida keeps his chin way up in the air. If you're a sharpshooter, if you can get in range on him, like a Danny Silva, these bigger, guys, Andre Philly, who hit pretty hard and have really solid boxing, who don't just have pressure. They usually do really well against Lucas Almeida. If you also have the grappling threat that like a Pat Sabatini has, I think Danny Silva even has somewhat of a grappling threat. You can do really well against Lucas Almeida. I think Nicoll Aswell is going to walk into a lot of big shots here. I think he walks into a lot of really big shots. Polastri was putting his best performance to date on Nicoll Aswell's face for the most part until he gassed out. Lucas Almeida is a sharpshooter. He's a pretty good kickboxer. That's about it. His grappling is a little, but he does hit pretty hard, and he can set people down very easily. And he does have really good finishing instincts as well. He only has 1 decision win on his entire career. He has 9 wins by KO, 5 by submission. I think Nicoll Aswell just isn't all that great. I think he's good. I don't know if he is crazy enough to be one of the guys that's beat Luke Almeida. For example, the only guys that have beaten Luke Almeida in his UFC career have been Pat Sabatini, who is pretty fucking good, Andre Filho, who's a crafty vet, who he got knocked out by, and Danny Silva, who he went to a split decision with, actually started to come back pretty well in the later rounds in that fight. I don't think Michael Aswell is even close to Danny Silva level, and he had a pretty competitive fight with Danny Silva in Lucas Almeida. So I'll go Lucas Almeida over Michael Aswell. I think he's a better striker. I think he hits pretty hard. I think he's got a decent gas tank, too, because he doesn't overexert himself. He picks his shots pretty well. And if you're not like a guy who's willing to go for it, like Andre Filho kind of just said fuck it and went at him and knocked him out, I don't know how much success you're going to have. I feel like Michael Aswell gets hit too much, too. So I'll go Lucas Almeida over Michael Aswell in a pretty competitive fight. We move to Ricardo Ramos versus Kaan Ofli. God, this fight back-to-back with the fucking Michael Aswell fucking Lucas Almeida one is terrible. I'm going to pick Kaan Ofli, though. This fight fucking sucks, because I don't think you can accurately predict what actually can, like, happen in this fight. I don't rate either Ricardo Ramos and Kaan Ofli. I rate... Personally, skill-wise, I think Ricardo Ramos has the skills that are better than Kaan Ofli. I think he's a pretty flashy striker. I think he's got decent BJJ. He's got decent offensive wrestling of his own, too. I think he hits pretty hard. My big issue with Ricardo Ramos is post-round one. Not even post-round one. Midway through round one, near the end of round one, he kind of forgets about that he's in a fight sometimes and literally just mentally blacks out and does a whole fucking bunch of nothing. He gets... If you look at any fight that goes past the midway of the first round, like, usually, it doesn't go extremely well for him post-2020. He's had 2 decision wins, Bill Algeo and Josh Kulabau. Both of them were pretty close. You look at his wins, though, extremely early in the first round. His losses midway through the first round. Ricardo Ramos has made a career off of, honestly, bad fight IQ. That's another thing. His fight IQ is genuinely terrible, and he's very easy to break. He reminds me so much of featherweight Charles Oliveira. In a way, he does. He's extremely flashy, hits pretty hard, has good BJJ, has some couple of flashy KOs. Danny Chavez comes to mind, the fucking spinning elbow. That he had another one in the UFC, I'm pretty sure. Was that on the regional scene? Nope, it was he had Amian Zahabi with a fucking spinning elbow. It was nuts. But besides that, it's been a whole lot of hit or miss with good old Ricardo Ramos. And Kaan Ofli, to be fair to him, is not great either. He's going to deal with an extreme reach disadvantage here. But I think Kaan Ofli's performance against Mohammed Naimov was just mid enough. It was just enough midness that, like, I could definitely see him beating Ricardo Ramos. You know what I mean? He had a somewhat competitive fight with Mohammed Naimov. That I'm like, you know what? If that was Ricardo Ramos in there, Kaan probably would have beat him. Ricardo was very easy to hit. He has some of the worst fight IQ I've ever seen in my life. Kaan Ofli has really short arms. Ricardo will allow people into range on him very easily. His legs are made of rubber. Not rubber, they're made of fucking twigs. You can kick his leg, that's how Josh Kulabau, he could have gotten a finish, but he didn't. I feel like Kaan Ofli trains with a solid team. In the sense that he's got a lot of great minds that can tell him exactly what he needs to do to win the, specifics, you know what I mean? I feel like Kaan Ofli can very easily beat Ricardo Ramos if he just allows Ricardo to wear himself out, which Ricardo often does. This isn't a fight where Kaan's fighting a defensive savant in Myron Santos or a well-rounded guy who has some decent cardio in Mohammed Naimov. He's fighting a flashy finisher in Ricardo Ramos who is a very kill-or-be-killed fighter who is often on the side of being killed in his fights, as of recent, at least. I'm picking Kaan Ofli over Ricardo Ramos, even though Ricardo, he survived against Chepe Mariscal, which is honestly a miracle in my opinion. I feel like Chepe might have been injured in that fight. So, I'll pick Kaan Ofli over Ricardo Ramos. I hate this fight, but I'll pick Kaan Ofli. We move to Jonata Diniz versus Mario Pinto. I'm gonna pick Mario Pinto over good old Jonata Diniz. It's close. I will be honest. I feel like this is gonna just be one of those kind of flukier KOs on Mario's end. Here's my thinking. I understand Jonata Diniz is a world-class kickboxer, used to fight in Glory, this, that, and the third. I don't know how sustainable his cardio is. I feel like he throws way too much. I know that sounds bad. It sounds like a terrible breakdown, but I feel like he overexerts himself sometimes in a really weird way. I feel like he just does too much. And Mario Pinto is a guy that I have seen go 5 rounds before. He went 5 rounds with Kasim Aras on the contender, not on the contender series, on the regional scene. He's been 5 rounds before. He's a bit more reserved. I think Mario hits harder, but I feel like he can walk people on to shots. I know Jonata Diniz is really good at that as well, but he's more of a forward pressure kind of guy. That's what you'll see more out of Jonata Diniz, is forward pressure. Mario Pinto is really good at punishing people for that. He's really good at punishing people who kind of wade into range on him and kind of try to force the situation, because he's a pretty rangy guy, really big for heavyweight, 6'5", 79-inch reach, really good check hook. I know he got dropped by Austin Lane. These guys both had their issues against Austin Lane. Jonata's more in the grappling, Mario with getting dropped on the feet. But I feel like Mario fought a better Austin Lane at the end of the day. I feel like he did fight a better Austin Lane in that fight, and he ended up chinning him. And he didn't have to push him against the fence to do it. He did it out in the open, catching him on the exit of an exchange. I feel like Jonata Diniz, if you make him think a bit more than just going to the head on him, you can have a lot of success on him. If you just do more than throwing punches at his fucking face like Alvin Hines, if you don't do what Alvin Hines did, where Alvin was just headhunting the entire fight, you have a lot of success against Jonata Diniz. I feel like Mario Pinto mixes up his attack a bit more. I feel like he's got a bit more variety in a way. It's going to be a lot of boxing. There's going to be some low kicking from Jonata Diniz. I feel like Jonata's going to be trying to push the fight forward. I think he's going to get caught with something pretty big in this fight. And he does get hit with some big shots. So does Mario Pinto, to be fair. I feel like some youth is going to be had in this fight. I can just so see Mario Pinto kind of lazily backing up, kind of just pawing at the lead hand of Jonata. Jonata moving forward, and then a check hook absolutely cleaning his clock. I can very clearly see that. There's going to be not a lot of grappling in this fight. If anyone's going to grapple, it'll be Mario Pinto, just because of how severely unable Jonata Diniz is to get up off his back. I think youth is going to be critical in a fight like this. I'm going Mario Pinto over Jonata Diniz. He's been in quite a few wars. Marcin Tybura did a number on his face. He even went to war with Alvin Hines. I know Mario Pinto got dropped by Austin Lane. Jonata Diniz went to war with Alvin fucking Hines. Alvin Goonsy Hines. To be fair, Alvin was on steroids. But I think Mario Pinto's pretty good. Gennady is too. I feel like he gets hit a little bit. I think he gets hit a little bit too much for my liking. Not just like a one shot like Mario Pinto got hit with. Where he got dropped bad. I think Gennady sustains a lot of damage in his fights. So I'll go Mario Pinto over Gennady. We move to the featured fight. Vicente Luque versus Joel Alvarez. I'm going to pick Joel Alvarez very obviously over Vicente Luque. This hurts. I love Vicente Luque, but I also really fucking love Joel Alvarez. And I feel like he matches up perfectly against the modern-day Vicente Luque. Vicente got absolutely murdered by Kevin Holland. And after seeing what happened with Kevin Holland and D-Rod, I'm not a huge fan of that. Especially when it comes to the clinch. Kevin Holland had a shit ton of success in the clinch against Vicente Luque. And you look at how he got finished with a Darce by Kevin Holland. Joel Alvarez is a submission. He's a BJJ savant in those front headlock positions. He had a Darce over Mark Jacasey. He's a finishing expert, is Joel Alvarez. And it's not like he's a small lightweight. He is one of the most massive lightweights that's ever been inside the UFC ever. He's 6'3", huge for the division. Not a slow lumbering 6'3", like a James Vick near the end of his career, where he's just kind of there. Joel Alvarez is a very dangerous 6'3". He's like a better Jalen Turner, in my opinion. Better submission ability, better grappling ability. Can get taken down and controlled. You look at the Demiraz Magulov and the Arman Sarukian performances, which are, it is what it is. Other than that, he's been perfect in the UFC all by finish, especially as of recent. I think Joel Alvarez is on a 4-fight win streak, I think is what it is, all by finish. I know his most recent performances against Jakar Close, Elvis Brenner, who was the one before that? Mark Jacasey. Yeah, that was back. That was in Rio as well. Or was that Sao Paulo? What? Oh, that was... No, Mark Jacasey fought Kawhi Fernandez. That's who it was. That's who I was thinking of, that Mark Jacasey fought. You look at what he does to guys like Thiago Moises. Mark Jacasey, Elvis Brenner, Jakar Close. He's murdering these guys. He's beating... Especially the Elvis Brenner fight. Elvis Brenner's tough as fuck. Joel fucked him up. Bad. He beat the ever-living shit out of him across 3 rounds. Had very little aggression coming his way from Elvis Brenner. He broke him. Muktabek Orobayan, why can't I think of his name? Why can't I think of his name? He's in my banner. El Gringo. Why can't I think of his name? Why can't I think of his name? He just fought. Fucking Esteban Ribovics. How, dude, his name fucking escaped my brain. Esteban. I'm sorry, Esteban. I'm sorry, brother. He had a better performance than Esteban and Muktabek. Honestly, maybe combined, over Elvis Brenner. This dude's a murderer. He's really going to clinch with knees and elbows, which is something we've seen Vicente Luque struggle with ever since the brain bleed. He's going to war with mediocre guys. Very mediocre. Nico Price and Brian Barberena are having tough fights with Vicente Luque. You know what I mean? Like, they're drag him out wars. Joel's a monster. He's a monster of a man. He's not significantly younger than Vicente Luque, which I wish Joel Alvarez was just a little bit younger so we could see him thrive maybe a bit more. He's going to fit perfectly in at welterweight. He's going to fit right in at home because he's not going to have to cut an extra 15 pounds. He's going to look big. I'm going to tell you, he's going to look fucking huge for this division. So I'll pick Joel Alvarez over Vicente Luque. I think Vicente's on the decline heavily. He had a very good performance against Temba Garimbo. Temba Garimbo's dog shit. You look at what guys like Joaquin Buckley and Kevin Holland were able to do to him recently, especially Kevin Holland, another tall, rangy guy. You know what I mean? Who has nasty elbows, who has good submission ability, good front chokes. I mean, it's written in the stars for Vicente Luque to lose here against Joel Alvarez. Joel will make a splash in his welterweight debut, finally fighting again since December of last year. Let's fucking go, Joel. We move to the co-main event. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Montel Jackson. I'm picking Montel Jackson, even though I wasn't a huge fan. I think we can all agree. Montel Jackson's previous performance against Daniel Marcos on that Des Moines card was not all that great. He didn't really show a whole lot that I was a huge fan of. He had a competitive fight with Daniel Marcos that he clearly won, but there were some, I feel like he could have capitalized a bit more. I think we all think he could have. Deiveson's old. Even though Montel Jackson isn't crazy young, Deiveson's old for the lower weight divisions. He has a lot of wear and tear. Hell, he's coming off a literally torn ACL. He had his knee ripped apart in May, and he's coming back in October, which we'll talk about, other stuff in the main event regarding, quick turnarounds. I just feel like he's going to experience so many unfortunate physical disadvantages in this fight. 1, criminally shorter than Montel Jackson. 2, insane reach disadvantage. 3, Montel hits really fucking hard. And he's a sharpshooter. He's a really solid striker. And I'm looking at performances in Deiveson Figueiredo's career at bantamweight. He's getting clearly outstruck by Chito Vera. Outside of the knockdown, he's getting clearly outstruck. The grappling threat's going to be interesting here because Montel Jackson, holy shit, that stutter back there was crazy. Montel has struggled with grapplers in the past. I feel like he's going into this fight, the thing he's probably working on the most is his takedown defense. More than likely. Deiveson's going to walk onto something he can't eat. I can just very clearly see it, that Deiveson's going to run into something absolutely out of the ordinary, something he hasn't felt in a while. You see Brandon Moreno dropping him with jabs. Montel Jackson's fists are the size of Deiveson Figueiredo's skull, probably. He's got abnormally large hands. He hits really hard. I think we're going to see a very disappointing, uneventful KO in the first round. I think it'll look a lot like maybe Oliveira Topuria in the way that Deiveson's going to try and get the grappling going early. He's going to be heaving big shots early. There's going to be a speed advantage here for Montel Jackson. Deiveson's just going to run into something face first because he's coming back way too soon. He's older. And that's the thing. That's what I liked about Deiveson at bantamweight, was how quickly he was turning around even from losses. Petr Yan, he gets right back in there against Corey Sandhagen. From November to May, he took a beating against Petr Yan. He said, fuck it, I'm coming back. I don't know, man. I feel like this is way too soon for a knee injury. Speaking as someone who suffered a knee injury, not even to the length that Deiveson did. I didn't even tear a ligament in my leg. It was with my kneecap, and I'm still fucking... I don't know how he can come back that fast, honestly. So, I get it's been 5 months, right? I get that, but, I don't really know how he's going to look. And I can't go in there thinking that he's going to look the same he has, because more than likely he's not going to. And he already hasn't looked all that great in his last 2 performances. Got beat the fuck up by Petr Yan. Got outstruck by Chito Vera. People do not mention that. Other than the knockdown in that 3rd round, Deiveson did fucking nothing. If he didn't drop Chito Vera, he loses to Chito Vera in a striking match. I know Chito hits hard. He's not all that crazy. He isn't. To be fair, he just isn't. I feel like Deiveson's too old. I think he's war-torn. I'm going Montel Jackson over Deiveson Figueiredo by KO. Lock it in. We move to the main event. Charles do Bronx Oliveira versus Mateusz Gamrot. I'm picking Charles Oliveira over Gamrot. I feel like it's the correct pick, I'm going to be honest. Of course, there are noticeable things to mention in this matchup that I think do need to be mentioned. Mateusz Gamrot can pose a huge threat to Charles Oliveira. He just can. He has a style that we've seen succeed against Charles Oliveira in the past significantly. What Gamrot doesn't have are the essential physical attributes that those guys had. Gamrot's striking is not as good as Sarukian or Islam for that matter. He's a better scrambler. I feel like his takedown threat is not as good though. I feel like his takedown entries, I feel like this fight's going to look a lot like the Kevin Lee fight. I'll just say it. I feel like it's going to look a lot like the Kevin Lee fight. Gamrot is doing good in the early frames, taking down, controlling Charles. Maybe Charles gets up. Either Charles knocks him out and subs him early, or maybe Gamrot is doing well early on, getting the takedowns, controlling Charles. Charles is playing jiu-jitsu off his back. Sooner or later, he's going to get Gamrot in a submission. Like that, it's just how it's going to look. If Dan Hooker is able to drop you and get you in submissions and beat you, I know that Gamrot arguably should have won that fight. I personally scored it towards him. I know I picked fucking Gamrot. I know it's a little biased, but who gives a fuck? Charles Oliveira is your nightmare matchup if that's happening to you against Dan Hooker. That's just how it is. Short notice for Gamrot. It's not like he was training for another fight. Well, rumors is that Gamrot was supposed to be fighting Nazim Sadikov. So maybe he was training. But he wasn't training for fucking Charles Oliveira. He was training for an unranked Nazim Sadikov, if those rumors are even true. Charles, I get he's coming off one of the most braggadocious KOs we've seen in the UFC's history against Ilya. Ilya slumping him out cold. Gamrot's not knocking anybody out. I know he had the one knockout over, was it Holtzman? I don't even think it was Holtzman. What was that guy's name that he knocked out? Who was it? It was Scott Holtzman. That guy is fucking terrible. He is awful. You know, he had a weird thing with Diego Ferreira where Diego injured himself. Rafael Fiziev, fucking knee injury. I'm seeing RDA almost finish him in the first round. I'm seeing Dan Hooker almost finish him in the first round. I'm seeing Jalen Turner drop him a couple times. I'm seeing Beneil Dariush absolutely style on Gamrot. I'm one of the more Beneil Dariush fanboys on YouTube. I know I wasn't here for that whole Beneil Dariush uprising that happened for, 6 years. I love Beneil Dariush, guys. I was one of the dudes that genuinely believed Beneil would beat Charles and he could beat Islam. I was one of those believers. That's how hard I believed in Beneil Dariush. Gamrot's style, his style can work against Charles. With his level of striking, it can. Because he's a really good scrambler and control guy. He doesn't have the physical attributes. It's just how it's an unfortunate thing for him. He doesn't hit nearly as hard as those other guys. He doesn't hit as hard as Arm, and he doesn't hit as hard as Islam. He just doesn't. He doesn't even have the grappling of those guys. He's probably a better scrambler maybe than both of them, just because of how fluid his movements are and how he's able to get takedowns off of being hurt. But he shoots takedowns while he's hurt. And Charles is prone to wrapping up submissions. He just is. I feel like either way this fight goes, whether it starts with Charles getting an early finish over Gamrot, hurting him and then clubbing him or subbing him, or if Gamrot starts well early and then deteriorates, I feel like we're just going to get either a Charles Oliveira TKO on the ground, like Beneil Dariush style, or a Gaethje-esque finish where he drops him horrifically. Ends up in a dominant position on the ground. Gamrot Maybe not exactly as the Gaethje one, because he ended up choking him with a rear naked choke after regaining the back. I feel like if he subs Gamrot, it will be with a guillotine. But I just, like, I feel like I can't pick Gamrot here. I feel like all roads lead to Charles finishing him. Gamrot, do not give me, as I've said before, his style can work against Oliveira. It can. Gamrot doesn't have the physical attributes. That's just it at the end of the day. Physically, he doesn't match up like the other guys do. It's unfortunate, and it sucks. It's the fucking truth. So, I will pick Charles Oliveira. I will go with submission in round 3. 2 or 3 is what I'll go. Round 2 or 3 for Charles Oliveira over Gamrot. I think it'll be a thing where Gamrot maybe has some success early, scrambling, controlling Charles. Fight goes on. Charles's pressure starts to add up. Gamrot's, and that's another thing, is Charles pressures a lot. And Gamrot, he doesn't shoot well off his back foot. He shoots really bad takedowns. And that's another thing, is like his takedown entries aren't even that good. It's not like he's Hamzat, where if he gets an ankle, you're going down. Gamrot gets sprawled on a lot by higher level guys. I'm going Charles Oliveira. Fuck it. I'm UFC Thoughts. These have been my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC Rio de Janeiro. Oliveira versus Gamrot on October 11th, 2025. My confident picks reside with Valter Walker, Stewart Nicoll, and in the main event, Charles do Bronx Oliveira. My pre-card rating is a 7 out of 10. This card gets saved a lot by the name value. There are a lot of fights on here that I couldn't give two fucks about. A majority of this card are fights I do not give a fuck about. And I don't say that like lose. Like, I genuinely don't. I don't care a single bit about that, other than getting my pick right. Genuine. Like, that's literally it. But he gets saved by Charles Oliveira, Gamrot, Figueiredo, Jackson, Luke Alvarez, badass fight. Valter Walker, you got that guy. You got Clayton Carpenter versus Jafel Filho. That's a badass fight to look out for. Other than that, whole lot of nothing, honestly, that I can remember off the top of my head. Yeah, it's not a lot of great fights on here, but it gets saved by the bigger ones. If you like the video, give it a like. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Who are you guys picking in the main event, Charles or Mateusz Gamrot? I will see you guys after the fights, or if some news breaks. Peace.